Let's do a little start on crankdown theory. We're just going to do a few episodes, short videos instead of one long one. This will just be an intro for anybody looking to start getting into crankdowns or, just sitting at home, pandemic. So when we started making this, in the California Delta, or I started making it for us, we were tournament fishermen. We were trying to get a leg up, big profile. Seen some baits around, throwing the slammer, throwing wake baits, but it seemed like there wasn't a lot that was made to go under, to crank under, and that's where we wanted to do. We were tournament guys. We could see the fish. Delta gets a lot clearer than people think. So initially it was like baby bass profile, especially in the spring. We wanted baby bass profile. There's tons of shiners out here, different, golden shiners, delta shiners. I don't know, there's a couple different patterns that they come in, silver, some are gold. We have split tail, catfish, we have everything. But in general, you can get a little short profile for bluegill or shad, the longer ones, Cincos, they don't, nothing was really like the baby bass shiner profile. There was some baits out there. Monster Jack was cool. I like that bait. it was a really nice looking bait. Played around with that a little bit, but pretty much we just started making them, or I just started hacking on stuff. So the idea was to imitate these fish that are under the water that we knew the fish were eating. We know the bass eat stuff this big. We know they eat baby bass. We know they eat shiner. They eat 7-inch Cincos, So it wasn't like we were wondering if they would eat that size bait. We just didn't have nothing to throw at them. We had heard some guys doing some stuff, cranking stuff down, modified, far longer. We didn't, weren't the first, or don't even think it was first to do it, but, just similar mind states, So so this bait wasn't designed to be like a swim bait. I didn't build like a shiner or a baby bass swim bait to mimic life, like a Huddleston or a traditional swim bait in that sense. They were made for us. We're tournament fishing on the Delta, tidal water. We're moving, throwing stuff, heavy cover, bigger line, even braided line. So we wanted baits that we could fish everywhere quickly and weren't kind of predicated on it's a big bait, but it's a finesse presentation, lifelike presentation. We didn't want that. We wanted those aggressive fish that were hunkered down in cover to come out and smash these baits. And it worked. So the whole theory was that we needed a bait to fish like we were fishing our traditional style baits, like our square bills, our rattle traps, our, chatter baits, spinner baits. That I don't remember if the bladed jig was around much back then. I think it was, but anyways, all these style baits, rip baits, all these things. So we started basically with this. This is one, how do you make the estimate because of the people that have won money on the Delta on that? But it's over. I'm sure it's over, 50,000. I don't know. It's been winning money. Most of the tournaments the guys are throwing, a lot of the top guys have it in the box, or they're putting fish in the boat with it here. So it's an effective presentation in bodies of water like this. So if you want to get in the crankdown thing, it's not only lip baits aren't only wake baits. And if you want to start these presentations, I think that the first thing to look at is if you have ambush feeders, fish that sit under docks or cover, all these different things, laydowns, trees, weed clumps, overhead floating cover, vines, hyacinth, even rock piles. A lot of times you get fish that follow a bait. You don't get a lot of follows on baits like this. They commit. They see it, they commit, they eat it. Even if they come a long way, it's not like a investigative look like saying a glide bait. So anytime you can bang rocks, chunk rock, rip rap. I went back east and fished tube with a buddy, and we were catching them on the wake and crank in like 3 feet of water and 40 degrees. and it was 40-degree water, 3 feet, clay point, wind on it, weight and crank goes up, smoked it. So they were just eaters. So, you know, in those aggressive feeding presentations, these baits can be key. Like they trigger bites when other things don't. Right now, in general, glide baits are popular. You see them in the media. You know, a lot of people want to get the glide bait going, and it's a cool bait. You get glide baits reeling straight in. It's more of a, you know, I think glide baits are, once you really figure that bait out and figure out the fish movement, they become more effective. They can be a great search tool, but it gets lost and people forget about. You could use these baits, like they were designed to be a search bait. They were designed to be grinding, and you know, things like Tiny Clash, this bait. There's other baits that, you know, do this, not only mine, but just these lipped baits in general that go under the water. You can fish them slow on the bottom. That definitely gets looks, especially when the fish are lethargic. I'll put weights on my hooks and weight them down and real slow, sweet pause, sweet pause. But a lot of the times we're banging this through cover, ripping it out, you know, smashing into laydowns, banging into chunk rock and letting it float up, fishing it through cover, fast and aggressive like you would any other hard bait. Like you throw it on heavy line, like 20 pound plus, I would recommend. You could throw these on a flipping stick. You don't need special gear to throw these 2 ounce baits. And you just go to it. Just put it in places where you would put all the other stuff. And they will come out and absolutely crush this thing. And you can really lean on them too, because they come with the bigger hooks. You could upgrade the, you know, the hooks to 3X, if, like, that's what I prefer to do. And adjust the sink rate a little bit, but you know, sometimes you want to lean on the fish. You can do the same things you do with the hard bait. Like if you go in and you think about these baits as like applying it like a soft bait, like a hollow belly, like a Huddleston, like a 68, like a battle shad, you know, or these different baits. When you pick up this presentation, you still can put these in those ultimate feeding lanes, but you're not using it to its ability. These lipped baits that go under, you really want to fish them, I think, if not always aggressively, always with pauses. You always want to pause the bait in the retrieve and maybe give it a twitch or just a slow hesitation. My favorite retrieve sometimes is just sweep the rod, reel it back in. If you think about these style baits like a square bill, your bites will go up tremendously if you haven't been doing that. So crankdowns, good everywhere. If it's super clear water and a calm day, you know, you're probably not going to get trucked unless you get it next to overhead cover, shade pockets, stuff like that. But out in the open, not. But if you got a wind chop on the water, wind blown points, anything like that, you get these up there and bring them back and they come out and they just crush them. You know what I mean? They have the little soft tail in them for the most part, you know, that wiggles. I think the tail's important, but regardless, it's the profile, the natural profile. Those fish are up eating those larger profile baits. You're going to get crushed on that stuff. Not saying it's better or worse than a glide bait or any other soft bait, but if you were fishing traditional style lures, you might have, you know, like a Kitech, and then you'd have a spinner bait, and then you'd have a crank bait, and then you'd have a rip bait, you know, just, or you could have a glide bait and a Crankdown and a Huddleston and an A-rig, you know what I mean? Like, this would be like the crankbait. The glide bait might be like the rip bait. You could fish these like the rip bait too. In the winter time, you could fish these and weight them to suspend. These can be deadly suspenders. But for the most part, I'm fishing it like a square bill or, you know, something like that. So if you've been hesitant about it, you don't need to buy new equipment. Grab a flipping stick, throw 20 pound on that sucker, and go out and throw this thing where you throw all the other stuff. And you'll be, I'm sure you'll be pleasantly surprised. Your bite rate might go down. You'd be surprised. You catch a lot of small fish on these, but your bite rate might go down, but your average size of fish goes up tremendously. It's, you know, it's just the way it is. So hopefully that gave you a little intro. Check out the next video. It's locked down. I'm sure it'll be coming out soon. I'm going to get the equipment together and I'll go through some reels, lines, rods, custom and production that you could grab that are good options. And And I'll even talk about hardware like hooks and rings and stuff. And then I'll do another one that's more in depth, like specific presentations that I like to do. You know, it's hard for me to do that though. I'll just go as detailed as I can about, you know, the approach and what the baits do. But, you know, I'm not here to preach to anybody of specific stuff that catches fish. I'll give you the presentations that work for me, but remember, when you go out there, just go out there, and you have to keep changing stuff up throughout the day. You know, if you're not getting bites, even the bait, if the bait isn't working, it's just another tool in the toolbox. But never hesitate. I don't care what anybody says when it comes to lures, anything, especially with swim baits. If you don't like the hooks, change the hooks. Try heavier hooks. Try a different tail. Shorten the tail. Clip the tail a little bit. My baits, at least, most baits will respond the same, but you could make small changes that'll affect the action that might be what you want. You know, like, you never know. Shorten the tail on a rat, lengthen the tail on a rat, get a thinner worm, thicker worm, softer worm, harder worm. That will all change the action of the bait. So just something to think about. Just because you get a lure a certain way doesn't mean that you have to keep it that way ever. I mean, it might affect sink rate or whatever, but who knows? That might make the bait perform the way you want it. So just keep an open mind, especially when it comes to new stuff like crankdowns. If you're not into it, do whatever you want to it. That's my advice, to make you confident in throwing it. So see you on the next one.